Now we are here once again, and now this morning I've been thinking about a book I read by this guy called Paulo Coelho, and Paulo Coelho writes an amazing book after a big hit on Alchemist. He does a book called Veronica Decides to Die. Now the title is very catchy, and when you read it you'll want to realize, why should Veronica decides to die? And Paulo Coelho in the book narrates a very beautiful story of this librarian lady who decides to die because of the sameness of life. Sameness of life in the sense of she masters her own routine. She knows what she does when she wakes up. After waking up, after some time, she has to take breakfast, then she has to go to work, then in the evening she has to go out with with her boyfriend, then after dinner she comes back to the apartment, and the circle continues and continues and continues. Now after she tries to project her life in the coming years, she sees herself in the very, very routine, and she feels life is meaningless. And so what happens to her? She decides to take some pills, she commits suicide. Unfortunately, she doesn't die because someone saves her. But the point is, why should people decide to die? What does sameness of life mean to us? What does that do to us? And what happens when we get ourselves in routines that can be foreseen, routines that are predictable? What happens when we get ourselves in predictable kind of operation systems? Maybe that is something to think about.
Yeah, quite true. First and foremost, we have to acknowledge the fact that routine kills. Routine brings in fatigue, routine brings in boredom. However, it's a routine that has already been established. Not a one-day routine or a two-day routine. I'm talking about maybe months of doing the same thing in the same way, talking about years of doing the same thing in the same way, because the positive side of routine is that it generates habits, so that you are always on autopilot. When you get to the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, that's what he says, that once you've already mastered the art of habit generation and creation, your mind shifts from making those small decisions, because now it's on autopilot. So your mind is reserved for some other things, maybe creativity or something else, but not these daily decisions that you're making. So that's the upside of routine. But then the downside of routine is what you're saying here: the fatigue, the monotony, the familiar environment each and every day. And so what I think is, in as much as we are acknowledging that this routine can really send somebody towards that direction of having an existential crisis, that okay, this is what I'm doing every day, this is what I'm doing every week, this is what I'm doing every year, day in, day out. It's also important to acknowledge what it does for us. Right? Now, away from that, let's come to Veronica and why she decides to die. She decides to die because of that continual process that is always getting on in her life. And this is what I'm waking up to do every day. This is how my 10 a.m. looks like on Monday the 31st to Monday the 7th to Monday the 24th. It's the same day, same operation, same everything. I feel to get away from that, we need to create meaning in what you're doing. However much of a routine it is, we need to create meaning in what you're doing. And I'll really credit the Roman Catholic Church for this. We celebrate Mass every day, for some every Sunday, and Mass is always Mass. If it's the Roman rite, we know we are beginning with in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And then we go to the penitential rite. Then we always follow that wherever you go in this world. As long as it's in the Roman rite, that's what we'll do, day in, day out. But what makes it not to be boring is the meaning we attach to the liturgy. that at this particular point we are reciting this prayer which symbolizes this. Right? We go back into the debate of signs and symbols. At this particular moment, we are singing this song because we are joining the hosts of heaven to sing Hosanna to the King. Right? At this particular moment, we are going to receive the Eucharist because in the Eucharist we find the true divinity and humanity of Jesus Christ. I think without attaching meaning to those routine practices we do, we'll get to the point where Veronica got.
Loud and clear. I think it can't get better than that, and one of it, I think, as you have mentioned, is meaning to what we are doing. It's very possible, I think, also to be very flexible in our daily routines. We have heard of question is what is a typical day for you like?
Yes.
Somebody's trying to get over how does your day look like. Now, what happens in our typical days? Can we like find other possible alternatives, things that we jot in, flexibility in our routines, drop in some new things? I think school systems, curriculum systems, and people who are into the world of building and developing minds and growth of other persons, they try to drop in many other activities so that all together, all this should not only be fun, but also should create more wider meanings to whatever students or learners or persons who are growing in a certain skill try to do. I think also part of it is dropping in other programs, operations that make the entire life system to be fun. Most recent days I had a conversation with one of our medical practitioner, and the medical practitioner was saying the best thing they do to, especially to those patients who are in palliative care, those terminal diseases, the caregivers in specific, the caregivers should always be changed after some time. They brought in the word compassion fatigue.
Yes.
A compassion fatigue is because I'm seeing the same person every single day. I'm trying to be there, help the person to become better and all that. But sometimes we get tired even in caring. We get tired even in taking care of those persons who need us most. So what to do is to do rotations, They try to include rotation programs within such a system, and it's a call always. I think it's an invitation also for us in our routine program, in your typical days, to find better ways of dropping other things, You have heard of institutions these days, they are trying to say today we just go team building.
Yep.
They go for hikings, they go for those activity, adventures, so that together they can, it's like venting out whatever you have been used to.
And what I'm realizing of late is that organizations which do that tend to be more productive and effective in what they're doing, more than those that just come to work Monday to Friday. Saturday and Sunday, nobody wants to know where you are. I mean, we'll meet back here on Monday as employees, and life goes on. I feel it's important also, those team building, capacity building activities are very important. You mentioned something about the compassion fatigue. Yes, there is a concept I also studied some time back when I was doing some unit in counseling psychology. They call it a caregiver's trap, whereby you are here giving counseling services, of course, and for some weird reason or for some reason, this client of yours doesn't seem to be moving. There's no progress in the session, and so you need some time out kidogo, and then come back and do stuff. And also in organizations where you're calling where these curriculums are in, I think we've been having something of the sort conversation in class just a few moments ago, whereby the issue of compliance, whereby, man, come here, do A, B, C, D. This time, know what you're supposed to do, and I think that also brings that negative routine. I'm calling it negative because it's the routine that kills, the routine that brings fatigue. Because if at all I can say that this is what I'm supposed to do every single day, it gets boring. And it brings me to another conversation which I think we should probably have off the camera, that it's to make it in some fields, it doesn't require skill or competence or anything. It just requires smartness. The smartness to follow that routine. So any smart person can be in that field. That's a conversation we had some time back when I was studying in Uganda. And this guy came and told us, yeah, there are some fields, this one included. You only need to be smart, because the program already rolls out in a routine. So follow that routine, you'll have no problem with anybody. Yeah, I think
the
now
logic is clear. Yeah.
So I think that's the kind of routine that brings in the fatigue and all that. That's what I think.
Yeah, and I think loud and clear. I think we're agreeing on something here, on need for rotational programs, need for dropping a few things here and there that builds other extra energies. And I think in the process, many people end up discovering even more of their abilities when they allow some other things to come in, you know. Sticking, what is the danger of sticking to one routine? You become a perfectionist in it. You know the loopholes. You know where the loopholes are and where you can fix them. You become a perfectionist in that system. But now what happens when along the way you also drop in a number of things coming in? Growth will always be assessed based on what we allow in also, and how best we interact with this new that we interact with in every single, in all our endeavors. And I think in many ways, dropping in rotational programs and allowing in new things to come in the picture help us even to discover more of what we can do, discover even the negativity that is there in the same routine, discover the positivity in the routines that we are in. You know, so there is a need for that. And I think we'll all agree to a great extent with Veronica when she can think of her own routine, project it in the next 5 years, because she has allowed herself to remain there. She has allowed herself to make that to be part of her life. And it's like that timing. She knows what will happen at 10 a.m. She knows what will happen at 1. She knows what will happen at 5 in the evening. And all that, I think, makes a mind to be, I don't want to say narrow-minded, but I think in other words, that's exactly what I'm saying. So allowing many things allow us even to grow, challenge our abilities, challenge where we are, you know, and all that. And I think that leads us to think of this guy. I read of Pepe Minabu, probably we have shared this time and again. He says game changers. He writes about game changers in a book called Beyond Limits. And in Game Changers, Beyond Limits, he say a game changer is one who believes there is more to life than the average realities that they find themselves in. There is more to what we see. There is more to what I've called a routine. There is more to what I call work. There is more to what, whatever I interact with on a daily basis. And I think game changers are people who look out for opportunities of growth. They still remain there. They still bring new ideas for growth, even in the places where they are working. They learn some other more things. They want to challenge even the very system. You want to imagine if we meet 5 of us in a department where we are working, and all of us are routine people. We know the same things. You know, no one is looking out. No one is trying to go learn something new to bring there. So we end up maintaining, if it is a B class or a C class, we will always be maintaining kind of people. Maintenance kind of a department. Now, it ought to be a growth. It ought to be a growing kind of department. People who vent out, people who go out, are people who will always bring in new things that challenges even departments, institutions, and by so doing, challenging themselves. Life gets meaning when we try to challenge whatever we are used to.
Sure.
I think life gets more growth and even brings more light to ourselves when we try to say, I think I can try something new. And maybe as we think of all this, I'm thinking of what new thing do I desire to bring in my typical days? Like in a typical day, what will I want to bring in? Some nice question to reflect on.
I've been abstaining from asking you this question, but I think I can't contain it anymore. What is your typical day?
What's my typical day? Now, apart from Chelsea and Chelsea things, I have to, so if I wake up at 4:30.
Wow.
So 4:30 I have to do some reads up to around 5:20. I take a shower, I go do meditations, I do a prayer, I attend mass, back to checking in emails before I leave for school, then back to schoolwork. In the afternoons I do some other extra learning here and there on a number of skills here and there. In the evening I'm still I'm a student. I go back to books, doing the books things, but before then I have to check on what's happening in social media. I have to, of course, check on Chelsea and Chelsea things every single day, watch news, see what's happening, when it's happening, especially in the football world. Of course, there's Netflix somewhere there. After books, there's a Netflix somewhere there and all that. But any opportunity, what I drop in the course of the day is to make sure along the day I have had a conversation, contributed a topic, contributed the content, or say shared in a discussion, which I think is necessary. Raising those questions that I think are necessary for discussions and all that. Trying to of course, I also do spiritual reads. Make sure in some groups where I work with some young the youths and also the young adults groups. I am there trying to share something spiritual, something for growth. That is something I challenge myself to do on a daily basis. So there's my typical day, 95% has lots of learning. Lots of learning, books, and learning something new, sharing, talking. So you'll realize I'm not okay when I'm not saying something in the course of a day. So somebody should realize I'm not okay when that day I haven't mentioned about a book. I'm sorry to say that. I have to mention about a book every single day, or share an idea about some book and all that. So I think my typical day has 95% learning, books, sharing, discussions. I'm a conversationalist. I want to drop in a conversation that is running and moving, see how people think about things, and also create some time for entertainment. Entertainment, Netflix, Chelsea, and that. That's my typical day.
Quite a good one. Hey, away from books, I think for me, I'm the exact opposite of you. While you get into what feeds your mind, I think me now, I don't get into what feeds my mind, but I exercise my mind.
Loud and clear.
And so I find avenues of exercising creativity here and there within the day. So I'm not a morning person, unlike you. Me, I just wake up, do a 10 to 15 minute workout, and then get into the shower, prepare for my morning meditation. So typically I'll wake up at 5 or 5:30, one of those two. So anytime between 5 and 5:30 I'm up. Then we do the workouts, then we get ready for the day. Morning hours in school, and in the afternoon, that's now when I supposedly have my own time. So I do I watch lots of creative people on YouTube. I spend a lot of my time trying to see what they're doing that most people are not getting. And so I'll either be watching tutorials or I'll be listening to conversations with some key figures. So my favorite ones are, there is some guy called Simon Sinek. And then there's some guy on Kenyan here called Director Phil. He interviews a number of CEOs around. He has actually a playlist called Becoming CEO. So I normally listen to those people, very young entrepreneurs who are making big steps in this country. So I try to follow their thought patterns and all that. If I'm not doing that, I'm watching tutorials on either music production, video production, graphic design, or cars. I'm into cars. Then I always get at least 45 minutes of sports, active exercise. I do play basketball a lot, so I'll always get some time from 4:30 to 5:30, just some time to play basketball or volleyball at times. Then I'll have my evening meditation and prayers.
Loud and clear.
And then my personal time again begins at 9 p.m. So 9 p.m. I'll get into creative stuff again up to whenever. So it can be midnight, it can be 1, it can be 2, depending on how glued I am on my workstation.
Yeah.
So
lots of learning in there.
Lots of learning, but not your approach.
Approach,
while you are a library rat, I'm not. I find fun in these other spaces. And so from what I'm reading from your routine, you also find spaces within there to drop in some stuff to kind of distort that routine. You've spoken passionately about Chelsea. Spoken passionately about Netflix. These are things that at least they kind of help you to kill that routine.
Sure.
Which I feel is important for any young adult, that in as much as there is something you're doing, because you have to be doing something, in as much as there's something you're doing, find also time to flame yourself up. Don't just burn, but also flame yourself up.
Sure. No, this morning I've been listening to Bishop Baron. You probably have known.
Bishop Baron.
Baron is big. Baron is loud. Baron is clear. Now the guy he made a statement in one of his podcasts, and he says, life gets meaning when you project it and have an equation of death in it. When death exists within your line of thought, when death exists within your line of things, then that gives your life lots of meaning.
Yeah, sure. And I totally agree. I read also something along those lines from some guy called, don't be surprised about the kind of people I listen to. So this guy called Nick Cannon. He's an American entrepreneur. You might probably know him from one of his famous shows called Wilding Out, something of the sort. So Nick Cannon is the minds and the brains behind all that, and he's good, he's big, he's into the entertainment industry. So he said that you need to plan for your death, because it's inevitable. It's the only thing you're sure of, that you'll die.
Robin Sharma.
You're not sure whether you'll be successful in this thing. You're not sure whether you'll have a heartbreak. You're not sure whether you'll own some land in Karen someday. But you are sure you'll die. So always have it ringing at the back of your mind. Once you do that, it's not that you're thinking about death, but you're getting into this awareness that at some point
it has to come down.
My time expires. So now what do I do within this time that I have? And that's now where the productivity comes in.
Death has remained in many occasions to be something mysterious, and at the end of it all, we will always project the end to death, to death. And so concepts have come, slogans have come. Today in the youthful world, you hear of you only live once, YOLO. Life is too short. The hastiness that we get ourselves into, because you never know, you only live once. Life is too short. You enjoy while you're still alive.
The pre-Vatican one was Memento Mori.
Loud and clear.
Remember, you'll die.
Bishop Baron. Bishop Baron talks about this today in the morning. I've listened to the guy talking of monotony. And actually Marcus Aurelius too talks about that.
Yeah.
Marcus Aurelius,
I think he
the
had,
emperor, he had a guy, soldier.
Yes, he had that
The guy,
tattoo on all
bodyguard,
those guys. Yeah. That Fanzia at the end of the day. In fact, most of the Christian mystics actually, they used to, if you listen to or research about ancient monasticism, these monks, they used to have skulls in their rooms, and I think that's where the world misinterprets them for being demonic and satanic. But that skull, a human skull, okay, in their monasteries, so that skull was there to remind them that is the ultimate end.
Yeah.
And that's why if you look at the brand of Memento Mori, it's either 2 fingers coming or that skull. Now one finger has flesh, the other is just bones, skeletons. Now for someone who doesn't understand that, can think, hey man, this thing is demonic, satanic, how are these ancient saints getting here? Yeah, but at the end of the day, this is where we're headed. And you need to realize that your time is ticking, and someday you'll be there. So remember, you will die.
Robin Sharma in his amazing podcasts and his books, even Who Will Cry When You Die, the guy keeps reminding us of death, that someday mortality, the human mortality is undeniable, it's unquestionable, it's a reality that will certainly come someday. And his practice, he narrates someday when he goes to different countries and is interested in seeing the cemeteries, he wants to go and jog alongside the cemeteries. A beautiful reminder that someday, you're gonna go down there. And his polite reminder always to us is you better be doing what you ought to be doing right now, because you just never know when that day comes. You never know how it will happen. You never know when exactly it will happen. He narrates beautiful stories of maybe you'll wake up in the morning someday, you say goodbye to your family, you're driving to work, and does it for you, and they will say the last word he said was goodbye this morning, but he's no longer there. So death, so Bishop Baron, in talking about the last things, the last 4 things as we are used in Christian tradition, especially Catholicism, we talk about death, judgment, heaven and hell. So the last 4 things, and he talks loudly about death, that people have run life, people have made steps, they have done things they never imagined they could do, because every single time they have placed death in the equation. And maybe it is something, when you look at it positively, death as something that can challenge our living today, death as something that can make us even to be more conscious of the time that we have here, to be more calculative of the little time and the things that we have to do when we are still alive. I think it gives our life even a better and better meaning. It's not a good story to talk about, but it's something we might want also to project, because our daily routines can easily come to an end because of the concept of death. And it's not just a concept, it's something that is undeniable, a reality that we live in there. And listening to Dr. Kubler-Ross, you have read of the book Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and Elizabeth Kubler-Ross writes of in the book, in the stages of grief, somewhere along the way on death and dying, said people have created, the little signs of immortality, little signs of immortality. They have tried to do things because they have they keep thinking of what will I leave behind when this time has to come to an end. So we keep doing some things with the mind of maybe this is the only thing they can remember me with, He talks of the death patients on their deathbeds who can still do something with their hands. They create mats. He talks of mothers who create mats for their families and says this will be placing it on the door and at the table, some things like that. They create some sweaters, they make, and they make the sweaters for their children that they will keep remembering them, especially for the terminal illness case. And it's not an idea far-fetched from this guy. Mark Manson. Mark Manson in the book The Subtle Art of Not Giving. Now he writes about the world is running. In the last chapter of the book, he dedicates a chapter that talks about the sunny side of death. You know, I don't know if death has a sunny side.
I think
but
it does.
he writes that part. You might want to tell us more about that. So in that chapter he says maybe what we look at today as world civilizations, people who have done and marked many big things in the world history, is because they are trying to leave a sign of immortality. And he says death do that to people. People want to leave a mark. People desire to do something that they will be remembered for. And because of this thought, this desire, innate desire within the human person, human persons have done things bigger than they could imagine. And maybe today we can challenge ourselves. We find it within our hearts, the courage and the strength to keep thinking about this, drop these thoughts once in a while in your life pattern, and you never know, it can challenge you. If you keep thinking of you want to do something for your parent, please do it right now. You know, if you want to do something for a friend or someone who is asking for your help, you know, you just never know. You don't want to postpone your hand in helping that person, because you know, that might be your last, or that might be the last of the other person, you know. So it even invites us, I think, in many ways to avoid postponement of things.
You know what I think is the sunny side of death, and this I get from some actor by the name Hugh Jackman. I think that's his name, if I'm not. No, Hugo Weaving. Hugo Weaving is his name. So there's this movie, very, very beautifully scripted. It's called V for Vendetta. And in the movie, there is a line, one of the many lines that struck me was that people with terminal illnesses embrace and enjoy life in a way normal people will never understand.
Loud and clear.
Because they have that profound understanding that, man, this life is slipping away from my fingers. And so the little that I have left with, I'm not going to joke with it. I'm going to live and fully live. And that's why I think after terminally ill patients pass through those 5 stages of grief, of their own grief, like now, you know, first of all, they deny, then they bargain, they accept, and all that.
Anger, yeah.
Once they've passed through that stage successfully, all those stages successfully, those are normally the happiest people in this world. They are normally the realest people in this world, because, you know, for us, we are saying, okay, this life has to end one day, you know, it's all here. But for them, it's in the gut that manze, this thing is coming to an end. So let me do the best I can. So these are the people you'll see. They'll call the family members and seek forgiveness, you know, do a general public confession, because they know I won't have this chance again. These are people who, if they had some savings somewhere, they'll now think of now what to do with this amount of money. If it's
they should leave it.
If it's investing for somebody else, or investing in something. These are the people who, if finances is not a problem for them, they'll travel the world, because they know, man, this is it. So maybe you can close from there and think about that. People with terminal illnesses, they embrace and acknowledge life in a way we might never understand.
Maybe we think about Baron this day,
and
what he says, and drop in death in our daily routines. Challenge ourselves, you know, we check our typical days. Maybe just like Veronica, we don't fall into those traps. We try to avoid those traps of trying to kill ourselves because of sameness of life. And if you find an opportunity these days in a world that is so much of individualistic thoughts, you know, I'd want to drop in a life-giving kind of lifestyle where you try, share, extend a hand to someone while they still can live. And I think in your words you keep saying you give them the flowers when they can still
smell them, man. Usikuje nazo kwa matanga, you're busy there with a bouquet of roses in somebody's grave. If you can do it right now, you do it right now while they're still alive, while you can still smell them. Alright, we call it a day.
Thanks, Mano. Thanks for the sharing.
Thank you. I hope you find this helpful and edifying. If you've not subscribed yet, kindly remember to do that. Let's explore what's in our minds together. And also remember what we do every week. We review books every Monday. And then we give Thoughtful Tuesday, we give Wellness Wednesday, we give Transformation Thursday, we give Foresight Friday, we give Self-Care Saturday, and of course Spiritual Sunday. So follow us for more growth-based content, and together let's grow. Thank you and peace.
Big up.
Somebody is the beats.